Good day and welcome to Guardian Talks on Guardian TV. My name is Fatima Rachel. Today, let's talk about the recent suspension of the creation of new federal universities, polytechnics and colleges of education, recently approved by the Federal Executive Council recently. According to the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, this move was made to redirect resources to existing institutions still lacking infrastructure development, poor staffing, and low enrollments. However, with thousands of students seeking admission into these federal universities year in, year out, the question is, what does this imply in terms of access and quality? Joining us via Zoom to discuss this issue is an Associate Professor of Communications at the Federal University of Technology, Dr. Bolu Folayan. All right, thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Nice to be with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, let's get right into the conversation. All right, now the first question is this. From your experience as an associate professor, what do you think this suspension means? I mean, for 7 years, isn't it too much?
Well, before we talk about the timing, let's first of all trash out the appropriateness. Is it okay to put it on hold, put a list of new university by the federal government to put it on hold, let's say for maybe 5 years or 7 years, whatever the years, it is an appropriate decision. And to say to put it at 7 years is even, I would say, for the medium term, it should be more than that. But 7 years is good, so that at the seventh year we can take a review and then strategize and take another 7 years. But I don't see the federal government. I would not advise the federal government, if I were advising the minister or the president, to lift the ban in the next 15 years. And I will explain as we progress in the interview.
All right, thank you very much. And let's look at the next question on the list. I mean, now we're talking about suspension of federal universities. How does this affect quality and access to education among the Nigerian students?
Okay, we are now talking about the benefits of the suspension. I can take it along with this question. What do we gain? What do we lose? Let me start from what we gain. That is the primary thing. There are about 198 universities in Nigeria. 45 of them are owned by the federal government. 54 by state government, private 99. So we are talking about only 45 universities. I'm not talking about polytechnics. Now, every year, the number of applicants that want to enter Nigerian universities, all of them, is about 2 million applicants that do take JAM. But in terms of admission, we hardly take more than 10% inside. I will come back to that. But the benefits of this suspension, number one, is that it will give the federal government opportunity to properly plan and reorganize our universities. Universities all over the world are not being funded by the government. The best universities, Harvard, Oxford, Massachusetts, IMT, all of the universities, most of the universities in the UK, in all other countries, developed countries, they are not funded by government. For how long shall the government continue to fund universities? Universities can stand on their own. They can exist on their own. But it is not something that you let them do so suddenly. It has to be a gradualist approach. And this 7 years, for me, is a good opportunity to plan towards the disengagement of the federal government from funding universities. Now, university will not be able to fund itself unless you do the proper organization. Where do we get the funds to run universities if you ask federal government not to fund them, to pay salary? So what is the quantum of income that these 45 universities make every year? How many income that are generated internally for these universities compared to? So these are the areas that the federal government can now address in this 7-year period. In terms of enrollment, I'm coming back to R&D. in terms of enrollment, you can accommodate. It's not when you have a proliferation of universities, it's not the number of universities that you have that improves the number of students that you take. It's your carrying capacity. How many lecture theater do you have? How many professors, senior lecturers, L1, assistant, how many lecturers do you have? Administrative staff to match? Do you have the capacity to take more? Is it that there are no land in the existing university to build lecture theaters? So what the federal government should do to increase in the number of students to admit is to build more infrastructure in the universities so that the carrying capacity can improve. And you can now have more people can join the academia. You have more professors so that the student lecturer relationship will be reasonable, and so on and so forth. So the problem is not the number of universities. The problem is the infrastructure and the capacity of those universities. And of course, the universities today, the way we run universities, it is not the best practices. You have a situation where somebody who started as an assistant lecturer rises through the ranks, become an associate professor, a professor, and then suddenly a dean, then he becomes the VC. Where did he get the experience to manage resources? Most of our businesses don't know how to manage resources. I'm sorry to say, in a way that can make the university self-sustaining. This is a very big challenge for us. But it's not something that is rocket science that cannot be done. They can be sent for training. If somebody wants to become the VC of a university, you can send them to go abroad for 6 months. That should be enough in this university. And they are trained and they come back. They begin to implement what they have learned on how to run a university. And you see, how I know what I'm saying is correct is that we have, at the moment, we have more private universities in Nigeria, at the moment. I think we have almost double. And 37 new private universities, 9 new federal universities, 37 new were approved by this Tinubu administration. That means the Tinubu came there, he has approved about 40 to 42 universities. That's okay. These universities, we have to grow gradually. University of Ibadan, our first university, took so how many years? Today, their capacity is just about 35% of staff, of academic staff, are professors. That's why we get low ranking in many regions all over the world, because that is too low. In some universities, it's less than 5% professorship. So what we do in these 7 years is to build the capacity. We have more academics, they grow through the rank, you train them. And let me not forget the fact I was talking about how to run university to be self-sustaining. They talk about IGR, how can you I'll give the example of diabetes or hypertension, that there's a cure for that thing in African medicine. But our professor of pharmacology and pharmacy, they be saying that I don't use herbs. Instead of them to research, why is it? And do you know that if University of Ibadan today invents a cure for diabetes, and the scientists come together in the university and they do the invention, they can make hundreds of millions of dollars through the patents, and they'll be fine. And that's where the fund will come, not school fees. They call school fees IGR. That's not IGR. You increase porter's fee, ID card fee, all of those ones, they are not competent to generate the money. But it's through research and development. You invent something, you patent it. Okay, you have Federal University of Technology. The intention of having this Federal University of Technology is to create a special purpose university. It's not supposed to be like conventional university. It's supposed to be different from Unilag and other universities if you have a Federal University of Technology. Now, that means that they will be specialists in technology. But when you go to some of these schools, you see they are doing accountancy, they are doing business admin. What is technology in that one? And that's why they are missing it. So universities, if the federal government capitalizes or builds on this 7 years, in 14 years, I can assure you that these universities will be self-sustaining. And when it doesn't mean that the government will not be giving them money. Government will be giving universities in the United States government, they give grants to Harvard, they give grants. If give, government will give, but it will come in form of grants, not that they will pay. That's not the way to do it. So this 7 years is a planning period whereby the management of universities, the management of the federal government, they can sit down together and plan so that there'll be gradual disengagement. Then they will have to do proper training for their staff in business education management. And then at the end of the day, so I don't see any negative benefit, any negative thing that will come out of this 7 years. The only major thing that people are saying is that where will this multitude of students who cannot get admission, where will they go to? And I can tell you, you want me to talk on that?
Sorry, at this point, I'll have to butt into what you're about to say now. Okay, so in your conversation earlier, you spoke about private universities still being established. Now, the question is that for the less privileged students, how can they, be among those that will be given admission, since there's now a suspension on creating more federal universities or public universities?
Well, let's get something very clear. Education is not cheap. If you go for cheap education, you get cheap certificate, you get cheap knowledge. Look at some of us whose children went to public schools, where public schools were really good. I went to a public school for primary, for secondary, for advanced. I now went to public school for advanced level, and I went to Unilag for all my degrees. Now, I used to joke with my students. Once I know a student that doesn't have the foundation, I would say you went to Paco Primary School or Paco Secondary School. People can testify to that one. And I used to say that. But so if the foundation is wrong, then what are you going to build on it? So education is not cheap. Let's get that one clear. However, if you compare the fees that are being charged by these federal universities and what some private universities are charging, the margin has closed. It's not more than 200,000. No. It's not more than, it's about 150 to 200,000, the difference between what some private universities charge and what the federal government university are charging. They call it IGR. They call it IGR.
Internally generated revenue.
Yes. Okay. And they used to charge, the tuition could be 100,000. But they have other miscellaneous development certificate, you sign this, you do this, you do this, you do this. By the time you have everything together, you are getting, that the private university, for most of it, so 90% of private university in Nigeria, they house the students. It's like a boarding school. The accommodation is there, transportation is there, all those other comfort is there, internet, whatever, they are there. But in the so-called public schools, they don't have them. So it is the cost is almost, at parity now. Now, private, it used to be that the assumption at the beginning was that private universities, the students who are poor cannot attend private universities. I have taught at Mafasa University, I've taught at Jabo. And I can tell you that many students that are there are from poor homes. They are children of poor people. They are not rich. Those that are rich are not many. Those that are very rich, they go to very expensive private universities in Nigeria. So it's not an issue. It has something to do with poverty. And initially they said that, these private universities, they are not going to be standard. But we see they are leading in law school, they are leading in medical college when they have joint exam. And when you in diplomat rating, that is employed from private university, we cannot see any negative thing. In fact, they are even better in many cases than those who go to public school. So that means that public universities need to be improved. And we're talking about the survivor of this university. If private schools can survive without getting any grant from anybody and they are paid salary as well due, how can it be that a university that has existed since 1960, since 1940, since 1970, cannot even do all of those work? It is down to management. It is down to management.
Thank you so much, Dr. Folayan. So there's a question on the mind of many. With the recent suspension in the creation of new federal universities and with the presidency approving establishment of new private universities, in your own opinion, don't you think there's like an uneven ground? There's no balance here as we speak?
Well, there is no, you see, there's nothing that is unbalanced. The private universities are helping the federal government. Imagine how many academics, how many spaces of employment that have been created through the universities, the private universities that we have in the country. Like I told you, we have 99 private universities in Nigeria, whereas the population of federal and state universities is also 99. So government university is 99, private is 99. So you have various opportunities for people to work, non-academic staff, academic staff, and so on and so forth. So the government should not stop licensing private universities. Those are different universities, they have their money, they have their funds. Once they have their funds and they are doing the best of practices, they should go ahead. They should go ahead and allow. But for the federal one, what I'm saying is that the one that you have, you need to manage them better. Then, if you don't manage them better, there's no point creating more. Many of these universities are created by the federal government to serve political interests. Imagine a university like the minister said recently, a university that has 800 students and they have staff. How can that be? Then you see some of them, they are like glorified secondary schools, they are 2-3 buildings. But because of the fact that they are federal government owned, we say they are universities. It doesn't work like that. So those kind of universities, they need to develop more infrastructure in them. You understand? I can tell you for real that the third fund has been supporting both public, both federal and state universities. Millions, even billions, are being pumped in for grants, for research, for buildings, for maybe anything, equipment. But do you know that private universities are not entitled to funds from third fund? They have been fighting it for the past 10 years. They don't get anything from third fund.
So can you tell us why? Sorry to butt into this conversation. Can you tell us why private universities are not allowed to borrow from third fund? I mean, third fund applies to all tertiary institutions.
It's not even borrow. It's not even borrow, man. It's even grant. It's free money. It's grant. And the reason they are citing is that they're enabling of the third fund administration. And over the years, they get the funds from a certain percentage of that, I think it's 5%, paid on profit by the private sector. They are probably 5% and go to billions of naira. And I can sincerely tell you that third fund has been up and doing in terms of funding. You go to some schools, all the buildings you see there, you see 10 for everywhere. Without that, it will have been more appealing. Now, they said they only need to amend the law. So the problem is that there's no will to do the amendment. Otherwise, a bill should have been sent by the minister or whoever, or a private sector bill by a senator or whatever, to the National Assembly to amend the law and allow private universities. If you ask me, I think private universities should be able to get some. It may not be as much as what the public universities get, but the private universities are also helping. They're helping to absorb labor. They are competing for same research grants. Let them compete for grants. I've gotten many grants from third fund to do books, to do research, and so on and so forth. So my colleagues in the private sector, in the private university, should be able to also, collect grants and then do their research. It is through research and development that a university grows. Do you know that if some brilliant students get admission to Harvard even give them scholarship. They come and take our best brains. Hey, we heard today that somebody else scored all A's in WIC. Somebody scored 390 in JAM. Before you know it, Harvard, Oxford have taken them away. They have taken the talent away. But our universities cannot utilize them. And instead of charging fees, they are giving more scholarship. Most PhDs in these universities are done with grants. So what am I saying? Our university must, even if you cannot get to that level on time. So Oxford is about 900 years old. Harvard is almost about the same time. Our oldest university is Bolu. Exactly. But do you know that in the latest ranking of universities in Africa, 7 of them, of the first 10, are from South Africa. The remaining 3 are from Egypt. South Africa has the first 5, considered number 6 to Egypt, then took number 7 again. And the oldest university in South Africa is just 150 years old. Why are they getting all these things? Because they look at your ability to get grants, student lecturer ratio, facilities, and all of this. These are what it's not the name.
All right, Dr. Folayan. All right. Can we shift our focus to this recent ASUU strike? Yesterday, the Academic Staff Union of Nigeria commenced on a national strike across all universities. So can you tell us, what are your thoughts about this new development?
This is what I'm saying. The strike will continue like that so long as the federal government is the owner and is running these universities. Do you know that a university can be privatized? Just like the way government privatized maybe NPC and all the companies, you can privatize a university, but nobody will buy share in those universities if they don't see money coming in, they don't see profit coming in. So long as the federal government is paying salaries, doing all these things, they will continue to be ASUU strike. But if it's when last did you hear of a strike in any private university, whether Covenant or Macro or any, have you heard? Any private university? Not that they have been taken off very well, number one. Then number two, it's a business enterprise. But so long as these lecturers see their jobs, we lecturers, let me say, people like I'm also a lecturer, we see our job as, you get paid, whatever happens. Yoruba will say, Ogata, Ogata. That is, the boss sells or the boss does not sell, my salary will come. It doesn't work in all this. They are benchmark. That's why private government university, a lot of lecturers cannot work there. You have to clock in, you have to clock out, you have to do a number of research in a year. If you don't do it, you will not be promoted. But our own public schools, they get around with all of this. So that's why they go on strike. So we should continue to manage the relationship with ASUU gradually. But I can assure you, the last time they went on strike, since people got there, they have not gone on strike. That means the relationship is getting better. So we can manage, we can discuss with them and resolve the differences. And gradually, I can tell you for it that even ASUU members, many of them prefer that ultimately the university should be managed privately. But for now, they are not considering because of the fact that the necessary enabling environment is not there. So when the enabling environment is there, everybody will enjoy working in a private sector-driven mentality than this public sector. You have a lab, there are no chemicals, there are no equipment. So how are you going to do your research? And then you have many professors, the professors in Nigeria university, there are thousands. What have they done to become professors? Many of them, they are in the lab, they are not developed. There's no patent. There's no patent that has been moved from lab to the market. So you can imagine, you have, let me take this point, you have an engineering school, for instance, and we are building roads, Lagos, Calabar Road. No, the railways are being constructed. University has no partnership in it. Polytechnics have no partnership in it. So why are they going to make the money? You know the trillions of naira that have been spent on that road, and the company that are doing it, if the university is the consultant to that project, they make money. They make money. Look at the University of Agriculture. Food is not available. We are thinking there's no food. But which food are they producing in our University of Agriculture? So by these 7 years, we make them to focus on those things, and then there'll be collaborations.
All right, I would have to butt into your conversation for lack of time. Before we call this program and before we call this show to an end, I have one last question for you. Moving on, what indices should students and lecturers look forward to determine that, this new policy is actually a success?
The indicators will be number of publications in learning journals by staff. That's how they measure university. When you hear university is rated this and that, these are the measures that they use. They are not different. Number one, your publication is in learning journal of your staff. I'm not talking about the journals you cook up in the department and then you put in your shelf. International journal. They should go to Google the name of lecturers and see their names in first-class journals all over the world. That's an indicator, and it can be done. It has already been done. If you don't have a Scopus journal publication in many of the private universities, you will not become a professor. It's been done. Number two, infrastructure. Infrastructure. You need communication. You need power. The current minister is trying to ensure that all federal universities electricity is 24/7. They are combining solar with hydro, with all of those ones, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. This is what they should be doing in the next 7 years. If you go to Unilag, at that was Unilag, lights no they go for Unilag. I was there 84, 87. I was there 1990 for my master, and I was there 2009 for my PhD. At that time, 24 hours electricity. When you have that in university, it's an indicator that university is growing. Then student staff lecturer ratio, it should not be too much. My area is communication, mass communication. How can you teach somebody picture writing, news reporting, editing, editing and graphics, broadcast production, when you have 200 students to a professor. You cannot do that. They won't do anything. Just give us a certificate, they don't go. And when they finish, they are very useless to anybody. Nobody will employ them. But if you have manageable students, like a student, there are no more than 100 in a class, you can rotate them, you can do practicals with them, and then they master what you are teaching them. So student-lecturer relationship is also very important. And then lastly, I will talk about their turnover. Any big company, whether Dangote or PZ, they present their annual report at the end of the year. How much came in, how much was expenditure. You balance it up. You now see how to cut costs. That's what they do in private universities. But here you see people that are so we look at the bottom line. How much have you generated? So we now be watching all those indices over the next 7 years. Today, if we have 4 publications in London Journal, you are now growing it by next year to like 10, in the next year to 15. Before you know it, we'll have publications that are 25, that are 10. Structure. Your lecture theater, you have 3 now. You now program that in the next 7 years, you need to grow it up to 20. So you now start looking for money to grow your lecture theater. As you are growing the lecture theater, more students are coming in. Then you phase out programs that are not useful to society. You start the classic in University of all this literature, all this, you can do it. You specialize. Sorry, before you close, let me make that point. Our universities are proliferating, they are repeating courses. That's not how universities do. You must specialize. At the time I was in Unilag was well known for mass communication-based social sciences. University of Nigeria was doing their own mass communication, emphasizing the arts. UI was doing their own mass communication arts. So there are specializations. You can also have BSc mass com, MSc mass com, PhD. It's not done. You must specialize at PhD level. You must specialize at master level to address problems of society. Those are the indicators. Thank you.
Thank you much, Associate Professor Dr. Bolu Folayan. Thank you so much. This has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
It's
my pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Dr. Bolu Folayan, for sharing that insightful conversation with us. The coming years would show if this policy is truly a guarantee for success in Nigeria education system. I am Fatima Rachel. Bye for now.